happy Friday. Good morning and welcome back to Money Talks. It's the Friday before Thanksgiving. I hope you can all see the slides. And it's the Friday before deer hunting starts. So, um, yeah, one of our recently retired colleagues, Phil Fry, I'm certain is probably already in his deer stand, just waiting for 10 seconds after dawn tomorrow to start blazing away. So that time of year. Um, so I want to get started by thanking the Northeast Regional, who kind of moved around their start time for their regional meeting this morning to give a little more time for Money Talk. So thanks, Green Bay Northeast Regional. Appreciate you. Brian and Andy, the usual cast. How we doing?
We are doing great. The sun is shining today in Madison area.
It
Shining up
is,
here too.
yeah.
It's great.
It's a
Chugging towards
rarity.
that little mini break that we get next week.
Oh,
Absolutely.
yeah. Yeah, there used to be a 2-day break in October a million years ago in the calendar for the teachers' convention, like in late October. It's a pretty good run, isn't it, from Labor Day to Thanksgiving? So I'm sure everyone's looking to get a day or two off, get away for a little while. Well, let's dive in. We've got like 4 or 5 different topics to talk about today, and there's your cast and crew. Um, So for next month, when we're just before the Christmas holidays, we will be the three wise men, following yonder star on our quest to get to the DPI office. But for now, it's just Thanksgiving. This is our disclaimer that says, no, we're not attorneys, and no, you can't sue us for anything that we say because this is just collegial conversation. All right, this is our agenda for today. Special ed, huh? And then 4K, and then some cash flow talk, and a little warning about some fake invoices and things that are going on. Why don't we get right into special ed? Um, okay, guys, so you got your first special ed categorical aid payment for November. Did you notice anything about it?
It was a little bit on the low side, let's say.
Just a smidge.
Yeah, yeah. We always anticipate a little bit of a conservative estimate, but it was a little bit more conservative than we anticipated this year. So hoping that works itself out in the future. But yeah, it was a little bit of a shock.
Yeah, I before we get into too much of this, the best part of our webinar is not us, it's the chat that goes on while we're while we're doing our thing. You get a ton of great information, and there's a lot of sometimes very funny collegial talk in the chat. So I encourage you to pay attention to the chat as we're going along here. So yeah, I mean, the basic framing on this was that congratulations, we had this big win in the 25-27 state budget. Special ed reimbursement rate for for expenditures that were incurred last year was going to be 42%, and came out at 35 the other day, right?
Yep.
So, well, that would certainly get my attention. Um, I want to mention a couple of things, and I'll throw it back to you guys. Um, the 42% we knew was going to be high. We knew that back in June, right? Because it was based on incomplete data, projected data. They're trying to guess at what the actual spend was going to be for 24, 25. And we had business managers, you know, sounding the alarm way back then. So we were encouraging everybody to step it down, right? Maybe 3% or so. Um, but then it's still a little alarming to see it come out at 35 percent. But I guess we should say that it's still not settled, right? DPI is still working with incomplete data, if you can believe that. They really are. So it's not unusual for the department to kind of hedge their bet, right?
Yeah, I think the idea is right. They don't want to have to claw back money from us once they've given it to us, or you know. So
Right. Yeah. I don't think you guys would give it back. I think that's the thing,
I would
it'd be
change
it
my
would
bank account.
it'd be in the mail.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, our computers are down. So it's at 35, and I know that 35 certainly set off some alarm bells. Um, I think I mean if the past pattern holds, and just based on the quantitative data of what the total pool of eligible expenditures is and where we are, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I don't think it would be terribly surprising to see that number climb back up to my guess would be between 37 and maybe 38 and a half, maybe somewhere in that range. That could still leave some folks a little exposed, where they were counting on some more funds, but that's, I think the number is going to settle around 38, give or take a little bit. At least I'm certainly hoping so. I mean, and I'm not just saying that like to assuage people. That's really what the numbers are pointing to.
I
Yeah,
agree with that. Right. And I did actually look at, back from 22, 23, the difference in the actual versus the November payment. And it's been
Yeah,
anywhere off by 0.9% to 3.1% difference.
yeah,
This year, it'll probably be 3 to 3.5% difference. So I'd say it's not outside the norm.
yeah.
But it's also something that I would definitely talk to your superintendent about. I know that there was just a Journal Sentinel article about it, but no one's talking to them. So it'd probably be good to score some points with your superintendent to bring them the news first before them hearing it from somewhere else.
Like maybe the Milwaukee Journal, because they ran a big story about it just yesterday. So, good point, Brian. Um, so yeah, don't be surprised if you get a question at a board meeting to it's been out in the media. So, yeah, the root of all this is that we're in some certain funding model. So this all ties back to the legislature. The things that the legislature values the most, they make some sufficient. Like, oh, I don't know, vouchers maybe. Um, and the things that for whatever reason, they don't place as much importance upon, they tend to make some certain. So, and that leads to proration. Um, for something as that's a constitutional right and a federal right, right, um, to a free and appropriate public education, and it's a right under the Wisconsin State Constitution. You would think that that would be enough, that we would budget on a some sufficient basis for this special ed aid. Um, but we don't, so that always leads to this uncertainty. Obviously, we'd love to see it become some sufficient. Um, so that ultimately is the root of it. And I do think that paper that was written by the Legislative Fiscal Bureau that kind of pegged these numbers at 42% this year and 45% next year, that obviously I think created some confusion in the field. So spoiler alert, don't budget 45% for next year. Okay. So
And Mike, we were talking a little bit before we went live, and this brings up a good situation for all of us that, if you're not syncing to Wise Data Finance, you probably should be, because then DPI could hopefully start to use actual data when they're working with the Legislative Fiscal Bureau, instead of what we're budgeting, and that could help them maybe get better estimates than what they were given the Legislative Fiscal Bureau this last time. Because like
oh
I know
yeah.
like I know the setup for like Skyward, they've switched to syncing every hour. I don't know why. Um, but they sync every hour all the time now with their new setup. And we don't have a
Um,
choice.
right. Well, I appreciate you mentioning that. Yeah, uh, if the department is being cautious with a 35% reimbursement rate, it's because even today they don't have full and or complete and perfect information. So, um, Okay, do we have an extra panelist? Somebody got a microphone on somewhere? We have a we have a mystery panelist on Money Talks. But Brian, your point is excellent. Um, the better our reporting and the more timely our reporting, the less uncertainty there's going to be, and these estimates can be made more accurate. It's a little bit similar to what we talked about last month, where we have a lot of districts that don't have their information in on time on the AC and the SE, and that got picked up in that Legislative Fiscal Bureau report. Better reporting by all of us would mean better outcomes for all of us. So we do own a little bit of that, but I think the key point for today is if you saw 35% and just freaked out because you were counting on a higher number, just be patient with it. You'll get better information in about 2 months from now, I would think. And then we can kind of revisit this, right? Um,
And Mike, I just say,
so
if you are struggling with your annual reports or something, you can reach out to your regional, or reach out to WASBO, and I'm sure we can get you paired up with someone that can, take some time out and help out. I mean, we're a big family and we want everyone to succeed.
yeah, that's a great. I, again, thank you for saying that. WASPO is going just crazy on professional development in the last year. We're going to keep doing that. We are a profession. We are a self-regulating profession, and we want 421 highly functioning business offices. And the best way we can do that is through PD, whether it's through WASPO or the regional, doesn't matter to me. As long as we get everybody up to standard, that's the goal. I should also mention that in there's not much you're going to be able to do about your categorical aid for this year, but um, you can do some other things around 27 fund revenues, right? I would look at how good is your Medicaid reporting, because you should be grabbing for every dollar you can get. And how aggressive are you on high cost tuition claims? And how aggressive are you on transfer of service? Those are areas where a really high functioning business office can really make a difference in terms of keep protecting jobs and delivering services in the classroom, right? I mean, so there are some this is a little cautionary tale, right? There's other ways to do this, and um, I would lean into that even more if I was a little short on my categorical aid.
I was just wondering from the audience on what they're planning now for 26, 27,
Yeah.
knowing that we're going to be at like 37 to 38.5%. It'd just be good for everyone to kind of put in, because we will be building our budgets here shortly. I know that sounds crazy, but um, I mean, we'll probably be looking at about a 40% for 26, 27 for our budget.
That's brave of you to do that. I don't watch the chat too much while we're doing this because there's always people insulting the host, and I refuse to be intimidated by these people out there who are beating me up. So no, I'm not watching it until we're done. Any other words?
I only see kudos for Andy and I, Mike.
Exactly. Like, what's going on here? This is not fair. Um, so yeah, it's usually like I love Money Talks, but can't you do something about the host? Is one of the ones I remember from last year. And yeah, great program. Who was the casting director? Was another one. So I don't want to read any more of that stuff. You guys can read it. Um, so yeah, and we appreciate Mike's examples from the 1970s. That was another one. I've read all of these and I'm just so hurt. Okay, anything else on special ed? Stay
I think
tuned. We'll probably bring it back in February or March, okay? Um, okay, let's move on. I wanted to revisit the topic that we just introduced last month around the 4K programming and this new item for 26, 27 called Get Kids Ready, um, around 4K. So this really depends on how you're situated, right, around the state. If your district is 100% in school 4K, you're probably in sort of the low risk category. And I think that's where you are, Brian. Am I right about that?
Yep.
Moderate risk would be where you have both some in-school 4K and some community-based 4K, which would be, for example, Madison has that model. And then the high risk would be those districts that have their 4K entirely out in the communities, which is Andy, right, Andy?
That is correct.
So, Andy, let's start with you because you're in the high risk category. And when I say risk, I mean risk of some sort of financial consequences or financial exposure. So, the Getting Kids Ready model it's a new program. It starts next year. It gives an option to those 4K community-based providers that they have not had in the past. And that option is to say, we're cutting ties with the school district. We are going to contract directly with the state. For each of our students in 4K, the state will pay us $7,045. Oh, that number is certainly to be prorated down. And that also means that Andy no longer can count those 4K kids. So Andy's at risk of losing revenue limit authority, and I imagine you're at risk of losing a significant amount of equalization aid.
Yep, that's correct. And make sure you don't
So,
make sure you factor that into the
yeah.
calculations, right? So it might make some sense for us to bring up the amount that we pay our 4K providers. In Oregon, it hasn't been a huge discussion with those folks until like yesterday. All of a sudden, one of them started getting a little bit more wind of things because there's some sessions that are going on out there and communications that are going on. So now we're gonna reach back out to folks and kind of talk a little bit about pros and cons of how this would work if they would separate from us. There's a lot of services that we provide them that obviously would not be there anymore. Um, we have an administrator that works with all of our different providers, helps them do professional development and all kinds of other things. We do safety audits. There's a lot of services we provide, but could we increase our allocation to them a little bit? Absolutely, we should. They have the same inflation issues that we have had over the last several years, and so that's something that we've been looking at as well. What that number is still up to be determined, but those are the things that we're kind of working through right now.
Yeah, this is a big deal depending on, again, how you're situated. And I imagine if you're a 4K provider, you might look at that number, 7045, and think, gosh, I'm only getting 32 or 3500
Right?
from Andy. I'm gonna jump ship. I'm gonna go take the state money. But if that of course ends your contract, the 3500 or whatever it might be, it probably ends transportation and all kinds of sort of informal supports that you've been lending too. So
And
I'm hoping that the 4Ks and the community-based providers and the school district folks are having careful and respectful conversations about this.
no.
Um,
So the
because
other
the entity that's not in the room is the 4K kid, and ultimately that's who we're trying to serve. Go ahead.
and the standards aren't quite as high as what we
Right.
have to provide, right? So we feel a better product, a better service for our kids if we're involved. I think that's true. The other thing that you mentioned before, which goes back to that some certain and some sufficient thing, is if you do the math on this, it's the amount of money is right around 9,000 spots for the entire state of Wisconsin. So if you're at 18, you're at half the amount of money. That's probably what where a lot of us are at right now, as far as what we're contributing. So my caution to the 4K providers is you really want to upset the apple cart. Why don't we give this a year And oh, by the way, we're going into a gubernatorial election cycle. We don't know who the governor is going to be. This seemed to come a little bit from the Democratic side of the House this last year. So there's a big question as to what the future of this product is, or these services are. So it's just something that we all got to kind of give some thought to. Somebody was asking what our number is. We were, before this became more of an issue, we were kind of thinking we were about 4,100 and change would be what we would be providing. So we've been kind of increasing that number a little bit each year, knowing that, again, there's inflationary issues with those 4K providers as well as just
Right.
like there are on us.
Right. I think I advanced the slide because I wanted to get to this sort of what, so what kind of part of the discussion. I think so if you're in a high risk situation like Andy, this is front burner. It's a big deal. It's a really big deal for on the instructional side and on the financial side. And if you're the business manager, this is not a topic that you can just punt over to teaching and learning or the superintendent's office. They might not understand these financials. This is a big deal. One of the Dane County colleagues of yours, Andy, was estimating a loss of like $10 million in equalization aid over the next 4 years. So if the 4K were completely removed from the count of the school district, that's a big deal. So the message here is take some time, do your research, get familiar with this Getting Kids Ready program. Make sure your superintendent and your teaching and learning team is in the game. Make sure the financial scenarios are clear and that eventually your team and your board and your community can make a plan. And the timelines are pretty quick. I think that the 4K providers have to opt in or opt out in like by February 1st, I believe. So this is going to happen in the December, January window. So this is not, it's one to not sleep on. It's a big deal. Even if you're Brian over there and you've got 100% in District 4K, there's a potential under this program that maybe some new providers will want to get into the 4K business. So there's not a no risk category. There's only a low risk category, right?
But
So just be aware. It's very dynamic.
and the other component of this, Mike, is if you were to have an in-house 4K provider, the 4K providers, I'm sorry, in-house 4K services,
Right.
and a 4K provider was out there and they wanted to do it, theoretically, a student could participate in both because they don't have a contract with you. And so think about that again from the proration component. If
Oh,
all of a sudden that number, that 9,000 number, I think you run past that pretty quickly. So
right.
that was a point of information that our MASBO brought up last time we met. Is there are districts that are kind of working with their daycare providers to say, hey, this is a way for you to help. Let's coordinate between us so that we can maximize this benefit between us. Well, that's
Right.
great for that community, but it's going to diminish the amount of money available for everybody.
It just doesn't seem like this is the best solution to the problem. I mean, it's pitting two important entities up against each other. And I mean, 4K should be, in my opinion, based from the school district, not from the daycare provider. But we also need those daycare providers because they're an important solution to our sometimes building needs or whatever other needs that we don't have 4K in our district. It's just I wish they would have thought about like a different per pupil amount or something to give to schools so that we could funnel those to the daycare providers. And it's more of a win-win or a win, no lose situation.
Right.
I think this
Right.
provision got thrown in kind of last second, right? As far as my interpretation of how it happened, because it was just not on our radar at all.
Yeah, it didn't come through the usual K-12 side of the budget. It came through the Department of Children and Family Services. So it kind of caught the school districts a little off guard, which is why, we're going back to it this month. I just want to make sure everyone knows that it's out there and do your homework and don't get caught by surprise. Um, so I guess, yeah, I'll reveal my bias on this. When I was in Madison, we had both in District 4K, we had a lot of community providers, and the range of I'll just say the quality of the 4K programs was all over the map. And it was like, man, we should be doing better than this, right? Um, and the school district didn't feel like it had any real control over that. And I suppose they could have pulled the contract, but then you're in a big fight with the 4K. Often it was like a community-based group or even a church-based group, and it's just the politics around it were awful. And so I really struggled with 4K in that model. So
Well, I do
um,
want to, I mean, you
yeah.
said it's a range of services. Like, I don't think any of us are saying that daycares provide bad 4K, education on their own. Some maybe do,
A
but
few do. Yeah.
a few do.
Yeah.
But I think the vast majority would be average, and there'd be some on the exceptional that may do a better job than we do. Um, but I don't want to demonize daycares that they don't provide, educational. They just educate in a different way than schools do.
Yeah.
It's not
That's
us
a,
versus them. I mean,
it's
we need
not.
them. I mean, if they can get our students better prepared, it's better for the district.
Yeah, I suppose there's a lot of different ways to do this. I do feel like having licensed teachers and school curriculum is kind of gives the nod to the school districts, but um, again, there are a lot of different ways to do it. Um, my concern here is making sure that this conversation happens in every school district at the cabinet level. It's just so no one gets caught, on February 1st saying, "Oh, what's happening?" Right? So, okay. Anything else on 4K?
The only thing I would say again is just, encourage patience with it a little bit. Know what you're
Yeah.
doing, but if you can get everybody to kind of wait a little bit of time in your district, if you're in a situation like us, I think it's going to become much more known what this program is in a year from now.
Right. Right. You can negotiate almost year to year, right, Andy? And at some point, you could say, all right, well, let's do a community study group and let's think this through, and maybe we'll come up with a different plan going forward.
Yep,
So you can have a short term and a long term strategy on something like this, I would think, right?
absolutely. Yep.
Okay, thank you for that. Cash flow and investing, topic number 3. Well, um, this is about the right time of year to talk about this, right?
It's perfect timing.
Brian, Brian, you're all over this one, Brian. What do you
I
what's
was
your
curious
what's on your mind?
from our audience, in November, how many have to cash flow borrow? So if you want to raise your hand or do emoji or whatever. So we don't have to cash flow borrow by the skin of our chinny chin chin. And it just gets close on in 7 days we'll be watching everything. Uh our AP run may go out that next Monday. So we just get that, until our aid payment gets there. Payroll doesn't get delayed.
Shove the
But
bills in the drawer. Nice.
yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, this is the right time, and I think I heard this statistic from one of the financial advisory firms. I think around 30% of the school districts, like this might be a year, this may like a year or two ago, about 30% of the districts are still doing like what you would call a traditional cash flow borrowing. And there's another group that does kind of a line of credit type of solution. And then there's some that are just that have a fund balance such that they don't need to do this. They don't need to do the borrowing.
Yeah, and Mike, you mentioned, two things. We've done way in the past, I think about 8 years ago, we had to do a short-term borrowing, and we actually worked with our municipality. And because it was really from, that Friday to the Monday, and the municipality usually has money um, to lend. And what they did is they just set it to the LGIP rate plus like a 0.5%. So we ended up borrowing like I think it was $3.5 million, and it cost us like $50 in interest because it was
Oh,
borrowing
wow.
from Friday to Monday. So I mean, and then to us, it benefits the taxpayer because it all stays within, the taxpayer. It's
Right.
not going to a big bank or anything. So it's kind of a win-win. So if you have that relationship with your municipality, I would definitely check with them. Obviously, it's a little too late right now, but
Yeah, we had the same situation and it worked out really well, Brian. Luckily, one of the first things I did when I got to Oregon was we created a fund balance policy. And the goal is so that we don't have to cash flow borrow, which has really served us well. And it took us probably 15 years to get to that point, but at this point in time, we aren't in that situation. So that's a policy that if you haven't thought about financial policy, it's something that can kind of help guide how you budget and everything else.
and then I just want to mention, like after we get through this hump and we get into January, then we're all usually cash rich because we're getting our aid payments, we're getting our tax payments, and it's like every single month we're getting large amounts that are way bigger than what we need. And at that time, we should be looking at our different investment options to, do short-term CDs or, just making sure we're making the most money. So if it's all sitting in your local bank's checking account, that might be at like 0.6% or 60 basis points versus another, vehicle that we have, like Mike mentions, the LGIP, which is at what, like 4%, I think, or 3. It's much higher than that 60 basis points.
Oh, right.
So just don't,
Like
and,
three and
and
a
I get,
half ish.
yeah, 3.5. So I mean, yes, it ends up being, maybe $5,000 to $10,000 depending on how much you're investing there, but that's still $5,000 to $10,000 that you'd be missing out on if you just kept it in your local bank. And I get some local banks match the LGIP. Um, But some of the larger banks, like a U.S. bank or something like that, not under my understanding that they match anything like that. So just invest the money too, and just know, have your good cash flow projections so that you know when you need the money. So it may only be a 30-day. There are a lot of promotional CDs too, that banks offer that are much higher. If you have a lot of money, you can do, I think it's still called the Cedars program. So you can invest $5 million, but it's broken up into FDIC insured deposits. So you
Yeah.
wouldn't lose the money if the banks go under.
Right. There's a few points on the slide I guess we should call out. First, just kind of similar to our discussion a minute ago about how you should try to maximize your other special ed opportunities for revenue. When we talk about interest earnings, that's revenue outside the revenue limit, right? Isn't that sort of that's it. That is solid gold real estate, right? That's where you can make a difference. So don't miss the opportunity. But the let's make sure we get the hierarchy right here. First, it's safety, then liquidity, then interest earnings, and not the other way around. So safety, well, first, obviously, we're protected by statutory rules. If you could invest in soybean futures, well, we might have some trouble in the school districts if we had that kind of opportunity. So keep it safe. But then liquidity, yeah, you've got to make sure that you don't tie your money up so tightly that you're going to have trouble with meeting your current obligations. So then lastly, investing the rest. If you're a new business official and you don't know what the heck to do, just look up the local government investment pool. It's a nice, simple, safe way to do it. WISC is very similar. Wisconsin Investment School District Consortium, something like that. Your local bank. Sometimes this isn't as true as it used to be, but sometimes it was sort of expected that the local school district would do its business at the local bank. Banking has become so global, right, that there's no such thing as a local bank truly anymore, but that might be a tradition or an expectation in your community. But Um, I think, Brian, to your larger point, these dollars are income producing assets, and you should be running them hard, right? Don't let them sit there doing nothing. Get them invested. And
I mean, Mike, we take like half of ours and half of ours is with Nvidia, and then the other half is with Bitcoin. You know, we're with Josh, or like,
are you?
and then we take the earnings and reinvest them in Vegas to
That's
double down, right? I don't do
that's
any of that.
great.
It's all a
Right.
joke.
Welcome to Money Talks, sponsored by DraftKings. Yeah, we bet it all on the NFL this weekend. Vikings Packers game. There's good safe options out there. This is a great thing to bring up at your regional if you're new or young or just looking to make a difference. Maybe you've got a kind of a CD based process. And those can be kind of a little more intense they take more time and attention, right? Because they're always expiring and you gotta roll them over and everything else. So look at these other options and um, yeah, and again, if you don't know, talk to one of your many experienced colleagues like Andy and Brian, for example.
Even if you are new into the field, I mean there are restrictions on what we can invest the money in. You
You
know,
bet.
all joking aside, like you cannot invest in Nvidia or Bitcoin. Like there's statutes that says exactly what you can invest it in. So don't do that or listen to anyone that says you can do it. It's better to be safer with your investment and keep it FDIC insured, and
That's right.
usually that'll keep you out of any trouble.
Right. So again, safety first, know the rules. You're investing in things where there's zero risk to principal.
And
And
again,
they keep,
find people that can help you, because there's lots of
yeah,
this gets complicated with collateralization agreements and all that kind of stuff. Knowing
right.
knowing what the market's doing, like the market's kind of getting a little softer on interest rates right now. If you've ever wondered, when they talk about cutting the interest rate at the Fed, that has an impact here. So it's stuff if you're not familiar with to kind of learn a little bit about.
And again, ask your neighbor, you know, your neighboring district or your regional. I mean, everyone's doing something different, and you know, if you think you have an investment that's too good to be true, it probably is. But you can definitely reach out to your regional, or you know, and say, hey, what is this? And you could say, yeah, you need to stay away from that.
Yeah, keep it real safe. We don't want to encourage anybody to do anything crazy. And since there's good, safe options out there. So three of them are listed on the screen. And liquidity is measured by your cash flow projection. So knowing how to do a good cash flow projection is a basic skill in the business office. And if you're not sure how to do that, um, again, reach out. Brian, anything else you want to say about this?
No, I think it was started and ended well.
Okay. WASPO has about $37.50 worth of idle cash. So we were investing that and the rates for a 1 year CD, kind of around the whole market was like I think it was 3.8. This is recently. And then the rate for 2 years was 3.8. And the rate for 3 years was 3.8. It was just absolutely flat as can be. So um, odd, odd, probably based on a lot of uncertainty in the overall economy. So, Brian, thank you for that topic, and I hope the regionals can continue the discussion. Okay, we've got two other little minor items I wanted to mention. Um, I was talking to one of the insurance folks who does a lot of work with Wisconsin school districts and was told that three of our districts have been kind of gotten burned. They've had three claims from school districts where the district paid, they got fooled and paid on a fraudulent invoice. And what sort of got my attention was that the insurance rep was saying that this is not your 2015 fake invoice. This was sophisticated. Um, Presenting an invoice from a company that they know that you're doing business with, right? Um, Everything looks very much the same, but maybe it was the wire instructions or what have you. It was just enough to fake people out. So so be aware. Time to have a stand-up meeting with your AP, or if you are also the AP, have a meeting with yourself, and just be extra vigilant. And please talk about this at the regionals if you've got actual examples. I didn't want to call out any specific district here, but three getting burned in the same like 6 week period, that should have our attention. So extra vigilance. It was a lot easier in the old days when we physically had the 3 point match, right? The paper purchase order, the paper receiving document, the paper invoice. Um, with all this speed and all this electronic processing, we don't really do that anymore. But the concept of the 3 point match is still valid, right? You've got to have an order, a receipt, and an accurate invoice. So slow down, everybody, and make sure that you're getting it right.
Mike,
Um,
we have the process that if the bank account changes or something, we need to talk to someone with a known number that we've talked to in the past. We would never change a bank account number for ACH or anything. Even with our employees, we make them come in person, just for those changes. We just don't want to be victims to this.
And
If this invoice came through, it might be that we paid it, um, but we wouldn't have changed the account number, and then we would have just had to get the money back from the whatever entity was listed on the invoice that had it in their legit bank account.
and Brian, I was just going to say, a few years ago, we had a situation where somebody actually got into one of our vendors' emails and pretended that they were them. And so we thought we were talking to them. So talking to the actual person and knowing them, that's important.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, I'm thinking that we'll ramp up some of our PD around this for if we can't get it into the accounting conference, we'll get it into the spring conference. But in the meantime, just be vigilant.
Again, it's
The other is that, go
it
ahead.
like you said, Mike. It's a good thing to have conversation with your AP and payroll, because
Yeah.
this happens with payroll too, where you'll
Oh,
get
yeah.
that email that says, "Can you change my bank account information?" And it's the same for them. I did the mistake of educating the AP person, forgot to tell the payroll person several years ago, and they got an email from our superintendent that they wanted something changed, and it wasn't our superintendent, and so we stopped that. But have conversations with both, and like Mike said, if you do both, just have a conversation with yourself.
And anytime that there's a big hurry or something like that, that's a huge tip off.
Oh, right. It pays to be methodical and not rush anything through. So just be alert and extra vigilance. Um, okay, so then I think the final thing, at least on the official program today, this is just a minor point we wanted you to be aware of that due to the government shutdown, that slowed up the instructions from what I believe is the Office of Management and Budget, OMB, the federal people. They give out the instructions for how to do the single audit and what's to be included and what the procedures are. And since they didn't do that or haven't done that or it's way delayed, that interferes with the ability of the auditors to do the work and it could slow down your single audit. So just be aware. I don't know that that's going to be a great consequence to a lot of districts. It might be to some of the ones that get a lot of federal money. Just wanted to make you aware of that.
It could result in having two audit statements. If they get one
Right.
out too, I know like our audit firm is saying that they're going to do two statements because they don't know when the federal government is going to get theirs, and DPI requires it to be done
Right.
soon.
Okay. Um, so I think we're going to wrap up here. I want to take a minute to encourage you to look at the SBOP conference. It's a great conference for your payroll people and accounts payable. It's School Business Office Professionals Conference. It's in the Dells. It's in de early December. I'm supposed to know those dates, but I never do. Anyway, the SBOP conference, take a look at that. Send your team. It's one of the it's a conference it's growing every year in popularity because it's so nuts and bolts. You know, it's just it's like actual processes that we do every day. So take a look at that. And I want to also congratulate our colleague, the CFO at Kettle Moraine, John Stellmacher. You might know John. He sends out the inflation estimate every month, the Stellmacher Index. All of Wall Street holds its breath every month, waiting for the Stellmacher Index to get published. But Stelly got his PhD from Madison in the Ed Leadership Program just last week. So congratulations to John. And I think he might do a breakout session for us at Accounting or Spring. And Jared Rosing is in that program as well. Jared's got a couple years to go. So nice to see some of our WASPO members making their way through higher ed. So with that, I guess let me take this opportunity to say, wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving for you and your families. And if you're deer hunting, be careful. And anything else from you guys, Brian, Andy?
No,
Congratulations, John. That's well deserved.
absolutely.
All
Yeah,
right.
take some time to shut down this next week. I mean, we need to recharge our batteries, and I know everyone's super busy, and try to get away from work for
Yeah.
4 days.
I think you should have your own government shutdown starting late Wednesday afternoon. All right, we're going to leave it there. Great to see you guys. Thanks to everybody who's in the chat. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next time on, I think it's the 19th of December. I think I've got a slide on this. There it is. Happy Thanksgiving, my favorite holiday. We'll see you on Friday, December 19th, when the three wise men will appear in our holiday best. Until then, thanks, and we'll see you all real soon. Take care.